Hello everyone, welcome back to another lesson on IELTS academic grading. In this lesson, we are going to focus specifically on reading graphs and more specifically pie charts. In the previous lesson, we focused on the line charts, and in this one, we are going to focus on pie charts. It is very common that in your IELTS academic grading task 1, you are asked to describe different types of graphs, and among them, one of the most common ones are these pie charts that I brought up an example here. So you're asked to describe these, and in this lesson, we are going to focus on specific strategies that you can use to better write about these graphs. So as you can see, these are not complicated graphs. It's just few numbers that exist in this graph that we want to focus and make sure that we write about those. So what will you need to do when it comes to pie charts? First of all, you need to zoom out a little bit. What is this chart is about to begin with? So if you zoom out a little bit, it's about police budgets from 2017 and to 2018. There are three different sources for this budget. One is national government, another one is local taxes, and lastly is the other sources. And also, there are three uses for these budgets. One is for salaries, one is for technology, and another one is for building and transport. So that is by itself is your first paragraph, essentially describing what is the graph is describing. So using this information that I just mentioned, so the police budget, the sources, and the salaries, the use cases for these sources, you want to describe the graph itself. So you can start like this. So you can write that the graph is depicting the police budget for the years 2017 and 2018. There are three different sources for the budget, comma, as well as three different uses or spendings. Let's write use cases, I think is the best. So that itself, it's a very simple first paragraph, but you are introducing what the graph is presenting. That's almost halfway there. And now that we mentioned that what is this graph about, then we can go into the details. What are the details here? Let me highlight it with another color. Let's choose green. So the details are, for example, here in the national government, in 2017, the budget for the police was 175, and now or in the year after, it changed to 177. Local taxes from 91 jumped to 102. The other sources didn't change that much, and the total changed by a little bit, let's say about 5%. So these are the details. What are the other details? Is that, for example, the salaries from 75% decreased to 69%. And the buildings and transport budget from 17%, it remains the same to 17%. And finally, the technology expenditure increased from 8% to 14%. So essentially, in this next paragraph, we need to describe these without going into too much detail. So for example, you don't need to bring up the exact numbers that national government, the budget was 175.5 million and now is 177 0.8 million. These are specifics that you don't need to describe. You just need to give high-level description of the graph. So in the next paragraph, you can start with describing the sources. So you can say the total amount for the budget. You can even either give the absolute value, which is about 14 million, or give it rough percentage. Really, it doesn't. You don't have to calculate anything. The total amount for the budget increased by 4% from 2017 to 2018. You can mention that as well. While the national government, I'm just going to write NG, it takes a long time, budget or national government source, let's write it this way. National government source, money or source budget did not improve or did not change, comma, the local taxes improved or increased, let's say, because improve is positive. A lot of people don't like taxes going high, so might not be improvement for everyone. I guess it's not improvement for anyone. So taxes increased by 10 million or 10% about, so from 90 to 102, it's about 10%. Increased by 10%, and other sources remain the same. So you can write that one as well. So now you describe the sources. You can move to the how the money was spent, so the expenditures. So let's move to the next page. In this next page, we are going to specifically target the second part of the graph here. So you can say the police budget spendings are three categories of salaries, comma, technology. Let me clear that up. Technology, comma, and what is buildings and transports. So you can write the budget for buildings and transports. Let's write B&T, it's easier. Your exam don't write B&T, but here I write BT. The budget for B&T, or the portion of the budget, if you want to be more specific. So the portion of the budget for building and transport remained the same, and again from 2017 to 2018, semicolon. However, the technology spendings decreased by 6% or so. Full stop. And now you can also bring it at the last point. Meanwhile, or at the same time, something like that. Meanwhile, comma, the portion of the salaries decreased, by, is it 6%? 6%, yes. So this is essentially it. We described everything that is to this graph. We started with what is it about, and then we give details about the sources and also details about the spendings. So this is as good as it gets, in my opinion. Let me highlight few important parts. First is the introduction, basically describing what is the graph is depicting to begin with. What is the graph is about. So the different things that you are going to talk about, the sources and the use cases. And then your second paragraph, you describe the budget, how this budget is came about, the changes that is happening in this budget, and you can give specific details. And we use these transition words such as while to move into your next point. Here also in the last part, we used specifically words such as however or meanwhile to bring more points. So please practice this at home. It's not complicated. It just, you need to essentially do three things: zoom out and describe the graph itself, and then two paragraphs, about two paragraphs describing different details. You can also lastly use a finalize paragraph, but I don't think it's necessary. Okay, so this is mainly how you write pie charts. In the next lesson, or in the next example, sorry, it's again another pie chart that you need to describe. Is essentially we want to use the same tactics to write about these. In this one, there's more pie charts. In the previous one, there was only 2, but now there's 6. So it might look more complicated, but it is not. So let's use the same tactics, and I'm probably not going to write the entire thing because that takes a long time. So listen along what I'm saying. So what is it that this one is describing? Let's zoom out. First strategy, let's zoom out a little bit and see what is this pie chart is about. So it's percentage of water used for different purposes in 6 areas of the world. So you can start describing that. So let's highlight the important parts. Obviously the title and the 6 different areas. You don't obviously need to mention it in your all of these 6 areas in your introduction. And lastly, these 3 different types of uses for water. So let's just shortly write a introduction for our description. So the graph is showing, in the previous one we used depicting, but in this one we're using showing for no particular reason. The graph is showing, you can use directly steal from the title, percentage of water used in different parts of the world for these use cases. So for 3 different use cases of, you can mention that industrial use, agricultural use, and domestic use. So you can give more details here. And now let's see what we can write about. If we want to write everything about these 6 pie charts, it's going to be 200 pages We don't want to go into all the details, but maybe we can, when the case is like this, we can maybe talk about the maximums and minimums. So, for example, roughly looking at it, the agricultural use in the Central Asia was, let me change the color of the highlighter. So the agricultural use in the Central Asia was the highest, 88%, and the lowest one, I think, what is it? Is it North America with, with this one, with 39%. So let's write that one out, and that's good for the agricultural use. So you can say or let's start with North America. North America, or you can say that the graph is showing that North America is dedicating the smallest portion of their water sources to agricultural use. I'm just going to write AU. Compared to Central Asia, CA, with the highest portion or the biggest portion of 88% going to agricultural use. So that is, without going into too much detail, we already described important details, and we summarize the information about these graphs. And you can essentially follow this recipe for domestic use and industrial use as well. So for example, looking at it, like Europe has the highest portion for the domestic use here with 53%. And then Central Asia is the smallest for the domestic use with 5%. So we only need to write that one out. We don't need to give all the details of like, oh, Southeast Asia is 12%, because that would be way too much. And you only have 150 ports. So summarize the key important factors, only talk about the largest portion and smaller portions, and it's perfectly fine. You don't need to describe all the details. And also remember that when it comes to pie charts, it's always about portions and percentages. So you can use these words, portions and percentages, in your writings. And also you can use the comparative words and all the connection words that we talked about in the previous lessons. So that's it for this lesson. I hope you liked it. See you in the next one. Cheers.